Yoimiya lost her spice, or can she still dish out blazing doom? In the next 30 seconds, you're gonna find out. Yoimiya is a 5-star pyro DPS that excels exclusively in single target scenarios, but lacks luster in AoE. Her high damage numbers continue to shine with brilliance to this day, and she can easily yield high performance at a cheap cost. She's extremely intuitive and simple to understand and play in a sea of overly complex units, though Dendro unfortunately hasn't done much to elevate her kit. And when there's a sea of other viable single target teams, what exactly makes Yoimiya in particular special? Well, that's what we're here to discuss today. I'm Juice, and that was the spice. Now, let's get nerdy. So Yoimiya, being a single target pyro DPS, is often compared to Hu Tao, her main competitor in the pyro DPS format. They're both single target, and they can both attack at quick paces, and they both have certain parts of their kit which may make others argue that one is better than the other. So let's put them to the test here and see which one truly comes out on top. I'll show build cards on screen right about now, and after the showcase, we'll discuss the variables. Both of them will be using their respective best teams. Yoimiya here will be using her most popular high investment team, while Hu Tao will be using her famed double hydro setup. A quick disclaimer, but the Yelan is C3, so for this reason, we will be using only 3 artifacts so that the showcase can be fair. This is to avoid any number inflation. Before we start, I would like to say that if I weren't obsessed with Genshin Impact, I would be obsessing over Final Fantasy XIV Online. This isn't just a sponsored message, it's a salute to one of the finest MMORPGs out there. Our own MMO veteran, Mike, is here to tell you all about it.
Hey, it's Mike! I have journeyed through over 15 MMORPGs in the past decade, and I can tell you the key elements that make an MMORPG great. Pay to win or play to win, PvE and PvP grinding and endgame experiences. Final Fantasy XIV is play to win, no pay to win nonsense here. All you need is a subscription, and from there it's a fair game. Your success depends on the effort, knowledge, strategy and skills, whilst you can even try Final Fantasy XIV for free, up to level 60 and the Heavensward expansion with unlimited game time. And if you decide to upgrade, your progress carries over. The storyline, absolutely gripping, and the grind, it's a thrilling journey with just the right balance, not too long, not too short, just the way we like it. Final Fantasy XIV PvE offers an exceptional challenge, packed with mechanics, and PvP's Wolf's Den system keeps you on your toes, blending strategy, mechanics, and adrenaline. Endgame content, Final Fantasy IV has it all. Dungeons, trails, raids, crafting, glamour, and mini-games. While regular updates and expansions with extremely rich content ensure you will always have a reason to log back in, assuming you have somehow finished the whole game. Plus, the job system lets you play all jobs on a single character, no need to create multiple characters. In essence, these 4 cornerstones create the MMORPG experience we need, and Final Fantasy XIV ticks all these boxes. And then there's these insane rewards. The game has already been the #1 MMORPG within 2022 in terms of population, once the latest expansion Endwalker has been released, and sustained as the 4th highest active population worldwide at the moment. Ready to jump in? Check the link in the description. Alright, let's get back to Tiffany.
Thanks, Mike, for showcasing the game. Consider downloading it if you enjoy Genshin Impact. Final Fantasy XIV is a blast too.
Solidify!
You're grand now. Here comes the catch. Fire hazard!
Stabilize!
Things are about to get dicey. Let me read you a...
Both dealt pretty decent personal DPS. As you can see, the difference between clear times was marginal. Yoimiya cleared it in 12 seconds, whereas Hu Tao cleared it in 11. If we were to add up each pyro hit Yoimiya dealt, then she would have done 558k personal DPS. As you can see, Yoimiya's most powerful vapes tend to make up the majority of her DPS. When we take a look at C0 Hu Tao, she deals 513k personal DPS, which is actually lower than Yoimiya's 558k personal DPS. This proves that playstyle efficiency matters, and that if you don't play Hu Tao in the most optimal way with excellent on-point cancels, Yoimiya can actually end up coming out on top. This is quite an archaic team, and most people are already aware of the flaws of it. However, if we take a look here, you'll notice that whenever we put up Zhongli's shield, and we'll just quickly get some energy back.
Let's light it up. Teamwork is
When you lie down Bennett Circle, which while it is pretty good for Yoimiya, you're not allowed to move during her normal attacks because, as you know, that will break her string. However, then she will eventually move out of Bennett's Circle, as you can see, and then she's going to lose the value of the attack buff, which made Bennett not the best and most optimal, synergy for her, with a bit of anti-synergy in that sense. So that's why Yun Jin is so nice for her, because Yun Jin is a mobile buff that follows her wherever she goes, and Xingqiu, his good Hydro application is a little bit wasted on Yoimiya. Whereas Yoimiya's current best team, I would say, perfectly takes advantage of how her ICD works, and also it allows her to be the best hyper carry she can be. Now the only thing is that Yoimiya hasn't really gained many options since the kind of birth of the Dendro meta. Overall, let's just go and apply Nahida.
I see everything.
And then we do this. As you can see, the burning applied is pretty infrequent. So overall, not really good if you're trying to sustain burning on enemy. And even with Nahida's pretty great Dendro application, the Pyro isn't going to stick for too long. So overall, Yoimiya plus Dendro, not really a thing, and I can't really see there being any future Dendro prospects for her. This also unfortunately means that more recent weapons or woes that are elemental mastery based, think about like Hunter's Path, she's not going to be able to use them as well as some other units, say Ganyu, who's going to be able to use Hunter's Path for Melt pretty nicely. However, this isn't necessarily a huge deal because one of Yoimiya's best weapons does still remain Rust. Rust is amazing, it's only a tiny bit worse than Thundering Pulse. However, it is worth noting that Aqua Simulacra, with its passive activated, can actually deal some more damage than an R5 Rust. Let's use the Yoimiya from earlier. When the passive isn't activated, her strongest hit deals 83k, whereas R5 Rust deals 87k. With an activated passive, Simulacra deals 89k. If you're close enough to the enemies, or at least within the range where they could hurt you, the passive will activate. Just thought this was worth clearing up, since it's a common misconception that Aqua Simulacra isn't good on Yoimiya. Set-wise, I'd say her builds remain pretty much the same. There's no real new unique builds that you can use on her. Now, obviously, there's a couple of things. First of all, you can use Echoes of an Offering. However, the problem is that you need to have really, really good ping, like literally like 20 or less. Otherwise, you're not going to get the procs very effectively. Shimenawa's Reminiscence is always going to be a solid choice for her. And that's already in the resin efficient emblem domain, which most people have been farming for ages, and most people have moved on to the Dendro domains. And another thing that kind of came with 3.0 is the fact that there is one set in particular you can strongbox, which is actually decent on Yoimiya, especially if you use Zhongli. So if we can go here and find it, as you can see, yep, I am. Retracing Bolide. This is a pretty niche set, and while it doesn't look like it's very good at a glance, and while its domain is pretty weak, if we take a look at Retracing Bolide, the passive actually can work on Yoimiya. So as you can see, while protected by a shield, gain an additional 40% normal and charged attack damage. This actually synergizes nicely with Yoimiya. While the two-piece isn't as good as, say, maybe some extra attack percent, that's only 10% less than what you get out of Shimenawa's, and you don't have to lose any burst energy, and because Yoimiya's burst does actually give a little bit of attack to the rest of your team, it's actually not a bad set to use on her if you want to keep that burst up time. And also, it just looks nice on her, which is a plus. The main reason why you would pick Hu Tao, why you would pick Yoimiya over Hu Tao, is simply that if your Hu Tao is C0, and even if you have Homa, if you can't play her well with jump cancelling, she's going to, if you're like bad at playing her, she's going to even be worse than a C0 Yoimiya because Yoimiya is so easy to play, granted that you're able not to mess up for her attack strings. And in my opinion, that does mean that for some players who really don't like Hu Tao's playstyle, that is quite literally a significant reason to pull for Yoimiya over Hu Tao. And another thing is that Yoimiya is good off the get-go at C0. You don't have to get a C1 in order for one of her biggest issues to be solved. And in my opinion, I would say that while Hu Tao is indeed a fantastic pyro DPS, and if you play her really well, or you have her C1, then Yoimiya is not really as valuable anymore. Hu Tao is melee, and Yoimiya is ranged, and in some situations, this can actually give Yoimiya the edge. Another popular single target team, such as Hyperbloom for example, Now the thing is that Hyperbloom is very hard to compete with as a team in general, just simply due to the fact that it's a single target damage team that does amazing AoE damage, and a lot of people probably consider this to be an AoE team. So for that reason, I would say the main reason someone would pick Yoimiya is simply that Xingqiu is freed up, that's one thing, and also some people do just want a pyro DPS, and it's very difficult to compete with Hyperbloom in general. Saying, oh, don't get Yoimiya because, Hyperbloom exists, you could say the same for almost every other DPS. And also, this is a team that's completely scaled on EM. Maybe some people are looking to build a crit-based DPS. So in such a case, while I do understand that Hyperbloom is extremely broken and hard to compete with, you're comparing a DPS who's pretty good, but not, completely necessary, to a team that is considered the top of the meta at the moment. So this does lower Yoimiya's value, and it can lower incentive to pull for her. However, do note that, Yelan can be flexed out for another unit, and you can use Yoimiya on the other half of the Abyss while still taking advantage of his team. There are plenty of reasons, I would say, that someone would want to pick Yoimiya over a Raiden Hypercarry team. The most common was being that Yoimiya is a lot cheaper than this team. This team, it requires Bennett, it requires Kazuha, and if your Raiden is C0, that's significantly less damage for you. It is the most broken in terms of single target and AoE, once again. However, the investment required is nuts in order for it to get to that point. And if you only have a C0 Raiden, then suddenly Yoimiya seems a lot more appealing because her single target damage is really good, and you don't need to invest all into constellations and weapons and use such valuable supports that will tear you apart, where the only really valuable supports you really need are, I'd say, Yelan, and I guess Zhongli can also be pretty valuable, but in most popular teams, Zhongli isn't used. And Yun Jin is pretty niche and good for Yoimiya specifically, in which case I would say, people would pick Yoimiya over a team like this. Overall, there's plenty of single target teams. There's probably a lot more that I missed there, but I just wanted to go over the most popular ones. Plus, I feel like people also underrate how she doesn't actually have to be played as a hyper carry. You can just play her as a driver for Overvape teams, or play her as a driver for other units in general who can proc AoE or who can make other reactions. Like with Beidou and Xingqiu combined, you have pretty good damage reduction, and you're not going to have to worry about getting knocked over as much out of your position. And I would say that this does mean that she's unique once again, and it is this uniqueness that can also make her more interesting longer term. You may find yourself consistently continuing to use Yoimiya for a very long time, and as you can see, look at all the reactions there. Lots of colors and lots of numbers. Just because she can't interact with Dendro doesn't mean that she's a completely boring unit with no other good options. Okay, so is she really the most optimal DPS? Is she really the be-all end-all choice of an account? Okay, maybe not. But is she bad? Not by any means. She is a good unit at her core. She does what she's been made to do, and ever since her last rerun, she's continued to excel with the upgrades that she got previously. Now, she hasn't really gotten many new changes to herself. She's pretty much the same as before. However, that's pretty good. She's still a really good choice if you need a single target pyro damage dealer, and can be played in ways that people would normally not shine too much light on, and is also pretty efficient to build, especially considering how good weapons like Rust are on her, or how she may have not gotten any concessions with Dendro, but a lot of units didn't, and they still thrive pretty nicely. So if you were to ask me, is Yoimiya worth pulling for in the modern Genshin atmosphere, what's my final review of Yoimiya, I would say it's player dependent. If you're someone who wants an easy character to play, you don't have that much kind of skill devotion to your character, and you just want someone who's just, Unga Bunga playstyle. If you like Ito as an example, then yes, get Yoimiya. You're gonna love her. She's a really good playstyle, and also her numbers are a lot better than people originally gave her credit for way back during her release. And I feel like she's improved so much since then, and people understand her, and people continue to understand her a lot better, I feel like she's actively always being recognized a little bit more. So even if Hoyoverse always gives her the L, maybe make this your time to give Yoimiya a try, give her a pull, and, form your own opinion on her. So hopefully this video was able to give you some insight on whether Yoimiya is for you or not. And without further ado, this has been Juice signing out, and I'll see you all next time.